law professor, expert in indigenous law, who works with some of the treaty councils in our area. So that's who we are, and we've met 2 times since the last meeting. And the purpose of our committee is really simple. It's just we're seeking input, and we're creating the proposed bill that will be introduced in Congress hopefully soon here. I've got just a couple of slides in front of you. In front of you at the tables is the actual bill as it stands right now. It needs a lot of work, but it's an improvement over where we started this journey even just a couple of months ago. So I wanted to talk about some of the big picture decisions that we've kind of decided so far. You can see this is really kind of 30,000 foot level. What we're talking about is the federal lands within the racetrack around the Black Hills, plus Matotipila, Iakaga Paha, and Mako Paha. So those are the federal lands that we're asking to be returned in this bill. The other thing that we've talked about in this is kind of a time frame for returning the land. There's some sections in the bill, I'll go into some detail here in just a little bit, that kind of lay out the time frame, what we're thinking about demanding the federal government to do as far as getting the federal land within their back. We've said this many times, and we're going to continue to say it. We're not accepting money for the Black Hills. In fact, that pot of money that's sitting there now, like Bill talked about it, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. If you add up all the money that the tribes, the Lakota nations have received for just ARPA money, it roughly equals what's sitting in that pot of money. And look how quickly we went through that money. It was like a flash in the pan. So we're not taking money. We don't want to take money. We're giving that money back. And so that's, I hope everyone hears that. If you don't take anything else away from the meeting today, please take that out. The other thing that we talked about at the last meeting a lot, and then we talked about in our committee, is just the language. What language? Do we use Washichu English language? Do we use Lakota language in this bill? The committee talked about that quite a bit, and what we decided is that because this is going into Congress, it's going into, before Washichu, they don't understand Lakota. And we need them to concentrate on the actual bill itself, like what it says, the substance of the bill. And we don't want them to be getting lost or getting walls put up because they don't understand our language. So we have to do the best we can to put what we're thinking in their language. And so we decided that we're going to use Washichu language in the bill, but we're also, you'll see in the draft there in front of you, we're also putting in, every chance we have, we're putting in our language in there too. So you'll see that throughout the bill. Another big picture item on this that we want everyone to take away from this today is that and I think in the front row or somewhere earlier here today, there was some discussion about like the cities are already are worried that we're going to take their land and that sort of thing. Right now, the way it's written, the private lands would be disturbed in this, but there's some details I want to go into when I get into the details of the bill. I also want to say that this is all just our best efforts right now. If among everyone in the room here, or those if you feel really strongly about this, I want you to please join us in our committee meetings because we need input on this. This is a heavy responsibility, obligation to ourselves and to our people to make sure that this language is right and that we're putting it in the bill correctly. And so now is our chance to be doing this. And so this is not final by any means. These are our best ideas as of right now. I want to take a little bit of time to go through the different sections within the bill. So I have some up here in the next few slides. We're going to scroll through them, and I want to point out what's in front of you, like what it says. Try and, I guess, make it non-legalese as much as I can, and just so you understand it from the non-legal perspective. And then I want you to understand it as it's written now, knowing that all of that, any of that, can be changed. So I'm going to start with just kind of literally just walking through some of this. As Holly said earlier, every bill in Congress has some standard provisions in it. Every bill in Congress always starts out with what they call a preamble. And what that section is kind of the purpose or the reason that Congress would be enacting this bill. And so that's in front of you, that's that paragraph, the very first paragraph. It says, to reaffirm the recognized sovereign boundaries of the territory of the Great Sioux Nation, to relinquish and return the Black Hills to the Great Sioux Nation, to provide for the resource protection and self-determination of the Great Sioux Nation, to remove barriers to the free exercise of traditional Native spirituality in the Black Hills, to preserve the sacred Black Hills from desecration, to educate and preserve the future of Native youth, and for other purposes. So that, in summary, that's why we're doing this bill, for all of these reasons. And every congressional bill has that right up front. The next section is, and I didn't even put it on this slide because it's just the title of the bill, the short title of the bill. We will get back to that though. The version you see in front of you, you can see that it has highlighted in yellow. It says, or Black Hills Restoration Act. That's one thing we wanted to talk about, is what we want to name it. We've been working with this title, the Sacred Black Hills Return Act, but within our committee, there was a proposal to change it to Black Hills Restoration Act, just because that in Congress right now, the federal government is restoring a lot of indigenous lands, and they seem to be comfortable with that language. So that's why that's highlighted, is because that's a decision that has not been made and that we really need some input on at our committee. So then the sections 2 and 3 on these any congressional bill really are just pretty standard findings and definitions sections. So they take up a big part of this bill. Between sections 2 and 3, that takes up the first 8 pages of this bill. But they're important pages. The findings section is really our opportunity to tell our story, to explain to Congress, well, it's Congress explaining to the public why this bill is being created. So they're declaring in section 2 all these different findings that you see in front of you. And what we did in there, we just told our story. We explained that, and this is going all the way, it's the first, goes all the way to page 5. It's 20 different paragraphs. Just laying out, who we are, we're the people of the Great Sioux Nation, what the Black Hills means to us, not just it means to us as part of our identity and our culture and who we are. It talks about our treaties, it talks about the U.S. Constitution. We remind them in this that their own Constitution says that treaties are the supreme law of the land. So we're putting their words back on them and reminding them that we are only asking them to enforce their own laws according to their own Constitution, their own treaties according to their own Constitution. So this is the section where we really spend a lot of time talking about just telling our story. We talk about how the land was taken from us in 1877, and how we've been fighting for this, for 150 years, trying to get this land back, and we've never given up, and we never will give up. We also talk in there about just legally how this has evolved, and like some of the acts that Congress passed, how we sued not the entire Great Sioux Nation, certain bands of the Great Sioux Nation sued the federal government in 1980, and they gave us that pot of money that is still sitting there that nobody wants. We talk about that, we acknowledge that it's there. And we also, already on page 4 now, talking about that how, even though the Supreme Court said that what Congress did was illegal, and they gave us that land, that we're never going to take that. And so this is what all these findings are saying on page 4, and then they finish up on page 5, and really just saying that right now in this era, in this time frame, Congress, the federal government is giving land back. It's recognizing the wrongs that it has committed against a lot of indigenous nations throughout what is now the United States, and they're giving land back. And so that's why we're stepping up now too, to claim what is ours, what ours that always has been. So that's really kind of what the findings section says. Then the act goes into definitions. Again, this is it's a standard piece of any congressional legislation, but it's important for us too, primarily because what we're doing, we're being Ieskas right now, like true Ieskas. We're talking in English to them, but we have to think. We're bringing them Lakota thought and our hearts, but we need to explain it in a way that they understand. Otherwise, they're going to get lost, and their eyes will glaze over, and they're just not going to pay attention to us. So, in the definition section, we spend quite a bit of time talking about like some of the words that we use further on in the bill, like customary law. When we say Lakota Nation, who do we mean by the Lakota Nation? These are just examples. These are all in alphabetical order in the definition section. So the definitions go pages 5, 6, 7, 8 in that draft that's in front of you. We define things like Ocheti Shakoi Viate, that's our way of saying in this version of Great Sioux Nation. We also acknowledge that Ocheti Shakoi can be kind of a confederacy of Lakota, Dakota, Nakota speaking people, but also within the Tituar or Lakota speaking, we have Great Sioux Nation could be even the 7 bands that we did our roll call this morning. So we describe all of that in the definition section, just for us to understand and for Congress to understand. We also talk about, there's some other language in there that we're going to use further in the bill, called, like one of them is reestablished area. To us, what that means is a land that we're getting back. To them, that means a land, like the federal lands that we're asking to be returned to us. So we clarify a lot of those meanings so that hopefully when Congress passes this and someone tries to challenge it in court, it's our intention and our meaning is clear. Holly also mentioned earlier when she was speaking that this bill will have to go before the Legislative Council. So what they're going to do is the same thing that we're trying to anticipate. We're trying to go through this and look at this from a lawyer's lens and figure out, anticipate what any like loopholes or like hiccups that might be in there that we're not thinking about. So we're trying to lay all that out ahead of time so it's not as controversial or can be challenging or as easy when it comes down to that. So that's what sections 2 and 3 are about. Section 4, so now we've laid out the purpose, we've laid out our findings, we've laid out definitions, so now we're going to kind of get into the meat of the bill. And the meat of the bill starts in section 4, and what we do by doing that is we start out by describing the land that we want to get back, the federal lands that we want to get back. And so that's in section 4, the bottom of page 8, and then on over into the top of page 9. We're going to need to get an exact legal description of this land, and so that's highlighted there. I just want to note that for you. But what is in front of you so far is using kind of latitudes and longitudes. It's a system that the Washichus have for mapping out land. This area, that what you see in there, section 4 is describing the racetrack. And so what we're saying is that the reestablished area is all federal lands within the racetrack, plus Bear Lodge Mountains and the sites known as, and they say, I'm on page 9 right now, Devil's Tower, we call it in parentheses, we put also known as Mount Tipula. It says Iakara Mountain, language. They call it Iakara, we call it Iakara. And then they call it Bearview, we call it Matulpaha. So that's the land that we're talking about, the federal land that we're talking about. Then section 5, now that we've described the area of land, section 5 is really is a big piece of this, but probably the most important piece of this legislation, because it's talking about actually returning the lands. So what this says is, and that I'm going to look at, this goes over to it's on page 9, 10, and 11. And what we've laid out in here is a process where the federal government would first inventory the lands, meaning they're going to go within that area, within the racetrack, they're going to go through and they're going to identify all private lands, municipal, that's like city lands, county lands, state lands. There's some lands that are owned by tribes that have either purchased back or their original allotments still in the Rock Hills. So all of those are all going to be identified, and the federal lands too, obviously. And then going over on the top of page 10, what we're going to do is then we give them the Congress will publish that inventory, that listing of lands for a period of time, and then after a period of time, then the federal government's going to quickly and relinquish those lands back to us. So that section that's on page 10, right in the middle, where it says B1 in general, that's really the meat of this thing, of this whole bill. It says that, I'll just read it because it's kind of important. Except to the extent otherwise provided in this act, the head of each federal agency having jurisdiction over any federal land, any natural resources and water and air rights pertinent to such federal lands, or that go along with such federal lands, within the reestablished area, that's that racetrack, shall by no later than the date that is 365 days after the date that inventory is published, and I talked about the inventory being published, they will quit claim and relinquish possession of all such federal lands, including water and air rights to the Great Sioux Nation, to be managed by the governing entity. That's a term we haven't talked about yet, and that's further in the bill, and that's another important piece of this. So that it's going to be managed by the governing entity for the benefit of members of the Great Sioux Nation and the tribes. These lands are going to be known as returned lands. So that's where this is a big piece. That's where the federal government's giving the land back over to us. So that's an important piece of how this is going to happen. Further on, like the bottom of page 10 and then over on page 11, there's some details about that. We're trying to anticipate some of the details that will need to be worked out. So for example, on the bottom of page 10, we say, and I also should say, we're coming out hard with this. We're asking, this is everything that we want, knowing that we probably will have to negotiate some of those terms, and we may end up having to give some of those things, some of these things that we're asking for, we might need to let them go. That's to be decided. We don't know yet what they're going to ask, what's going to really cause them to go crazy and what they're going to be cool with. Until we know that, we don't know what we're going to have to negotiate. It's like, I don't play poker, but like poker, it's like you have some chips and you kind of argue back and forth. So we're going to end up having to go through that process. So there's a lot of room for that to happen the way this bill is written so far. So the reason I brought that up right now is because there's like this bottom of page 10, that's paragraph 3, it's what we're asking for as of right now is we want all that federal land back, any like easements, leases, permits, agreements, anything like that that are all over that land right now. Like let's say there's a logging contract on some of that federal land. We know there's lots of logging contracts on the federal land. Or if there's a grazing permit, or there's a mining permit. All of that, we're saying in the bill, that's all gone. That's all wiped out. Where when we get the land back, it's not going to have all that stuff and all those people and interests clinging onto it. That's all gone. And so, and then the section, paragraph 4 on page 11 says, we know that all those people are going to be upset. The loggers and the miners and whoever else, the cattle people, are all going to be upset. And so in section 4, we kind of anticipate that and we say, federal government, that's your problem. you have to pay out all those people. You have to pay out those ranchers for that grazing permit. You have to pay them out. That's your problem. That's a you problem, not Lakota Nation, Great Sioux Nation problem. So we also anticipate that there'll be, we don't want to get this land back with a bunch of active, dirty, open mines. And so we're also saying United States, you have to pay for the cleanup and remediation of all those mines that we allow to happen on our lands. So that's subparagraph 5. Subparagraph 6 there is talking about if there's any applications right now, let's say there's someone that wants to apply for a mining claim on a piece of land, any pending applications, permits, anything like that are all canceled. We're not taking those when we get this land back. And then 7 goes on and says, but if we want to, if we, the Great Sioux Nation, Lakota Nations, managing this on behalf of the Great Sioux Nation and all the other indigenous nations who have ancestral ties to the Black Hills, if we want to decide later on that we want to enter any sort of agreements like that, then we can do it. But that's our right. And so that's what basically paragraph 7 says in there. Section 6 is talking about water rights. That one, in that section, we say we get them. This bill is not going to affect, and we also, so we get all the water rights. And we added in at the very end of section 6 on page 13 is saying that nothing in this act affects any other water rights of the Great Sioux Nation. Anything, Missouri River, tributaries, it's not going to affect any of that. We're talking about water rights in Black Hills, and we're going to get them. Section 7 then goes, we're talking there about hunting and fishing. And it's pretty simple. That's a short one there because it's pretty easy. We're going to have exclusive jurisdiction to regulate hunting, fishing, gathering, any other uses on the returned lands. When I say we, that's the governing entity, and we're going to get to that here in just a little bit, who the governing entity is. But this is the way it's written so far. Section 8, so there's 2 big types of land in the Black Hills. One of them is, a big chunk of land is managed as forest land, U.S. Forest Service land, and that's managed by the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then the other big chunk of land is national park lands, and those are managed by the U.S. Department of Interior. So 2 separate federal agencies are managing the majority of the federal land in the Black Hills and what we're calling the area that we're going to get returned back to us. So sections 8, and then on the next page you'll see the national park one. We're talking about that. So what all this says, section 8, the Forest Service lands, with regard to those, it's going to come back to us. We put in here, and this is again one of those negotiation points that we say in here that if we want to, we, the governing entity, may, if we want to, again, words are important, we may enter into a management agreement to cooperatively manage those lands with the federal government. We don't have to, but there's going to be a pretty steep learning curve when we get this land back, and so that's just an option. Again, that could be something we decide to take out as a group here, as the Lakota Nation. We also put in here, it's clear that this land is going to be managed by the governing entity in accordance with its customary law, including the traditional principle of respect for the earth and spiritual and natural laws of the sacred Chanukah. So we put that language in here. That's going to be a guiding principle for, if we're not around, if our younger generations are the ones that have to pick this up and carry this, that this will help guide them in how this land should be managed. Next slide. So then the next one at the bottom, page 13, is talking about the quitclaim and relinquishment of U.S. national park lands. Like I said, those are still federal lands, but they're managed by the Department of Interior, not by the forest, by USDA. And so that section talks about that. And it's pretty similar. We could, if we wanted to, have a transition period of 5 years where we do a co-management agreement with them. We don't have to, but that's maybe one of those points we could negotiate with them. So I'm on the middle of page 14 in that packet that's in front of you there, that document. And the next section says section 11, that's exempting it from taxation and condemnation. It's pretty clear, but we need to make sure that it's in there, that when we get the land back, any returned lands are not going to be taxable by any the U.S. government, state government, county government, local government, and neither can they condemn it or take it from us by condemnation. So it's a process to take land for public use. So this land will not be, they can never take it back from that in that way. Section 12 is a really important one. It's effect on treaties. And I'm going to read it because I think it's important enough that we all understand it. So subparagraph A in there says, all treaties formally entered into between the United States and the Great Sioux Nation or any of its member nations or bands are continued in full force and effect. And any other claims which the Great Sioux Nation or any of its member nations or bands or peoples or the governing entity may have against the United States are neither extinguished nor prejudiced. All rights and exemptions, both political and territorial, which are not expressly delegated to the federal, state, county, and municipal governments by this act, or any prior treaty or agreement are hereby reserved to the Great Sioux Nation, or any of its member nations or bands or peoples, and the governing entity. So basically a lot of words to say that the treaties are all in force and effect. This doesn't affect anything with the treaties. And it says that the second paragraph is important too. It says the return or relinquishment of the Black Hills to the Great Sioux Nation by the United States or subdivisions pursuant to this act is not and will not be construed as settling or compromising or affecting the claims of the Great Sioux Nation or its member nations or bands to any other of its treaty or ancestral territory, lands, or resources, or for reparations for any taking or other injuries sustained by it or its member nations, bands, or people. So we're preserving everything, and by passing this law, we're not giving up anything that's already in treaties. Moving on to section 13, jurisdiction. So what this act will do, once it's passed, if it's passed exactly as it's written now, it'll give civil jurisdiction and criminal jurisdiction, and it's called adjudicatory jurisdiction, the jurisdiction of courts, to hear claims in this governing entity. So this governing entity is going, whatever that looks like, it will be made of us, and it's going to have jurisdiction for civil issues on the return lands. We're going to have criminal jurisdiction over the return lands, and then we'll establish a court to hear those cases. Section 14. So this is kind of an interesting one. And they may end up changing some of this, or maybe not. But I want to go into detail or kind of take some time on the way it's written right now. So we say right now that with regard to private land is not going to be disturbed. So I know that's been a big thing. And back, I think it was Nick that was talking earlier about kind of the history, and Bill was talking about the history of the Bradley bill and how that came to be. And I've done some reading on that, and just done what happened. There's a lot of reasons that didn't happen. It was never passed. But one of the big things that really happened right away, right out of the gate, and honestly, I fear it's happening already with this bill, is that there's a lot of scuttlebutt talking right now. And back then in the Bradley bill, one of the things that really, I think, helped to defeat it was that someone put a rumor out there that we were gonna, the Great Sioux Nation was gonna come in and take everyone's houses and take everyone's land and private property and stuff. And so we have to do a really, really good job of, even right now, saying that we're not going to be taking anybody's houses. Private land is gonna be undisturbed. That's what subsection A on page 15 there says under section 14, subsection A. However, if there is private land for sale, or if someone that's a private landowner wants to give their land to us, we'll take it. And subsection B says that right of first refusal. It says that the governing entity has a continuing right of first refusal to purchase private lands. And so that's basically saying if some private landowner wants to sell land, we have the right of first refusal to buy that land back. So there's that one. On the top of page 16, this will kind of go to what we were talking about earlier, the question earlier about state and county and municipal lands. Municipal is another word for cities or towns. So, there was some concern that these towns are worried that we're going to take them back and stuff. The way it's written now, we could. And so maybe that's something we want to, talk about, backing off of or use it as a negotiating point or something like that. But the way it's written right now, again, that's a federal government problem. You're the ones that allow them in your federal government and to set up shop, and so that's something you have to deal with. But it's written that it says state, county, and municipal lands within the reestablished area are quitclaimed, relinquished, and returned to the Great Sioux Nation. And then the United States has to compensate them for that land that's returned. That's a pretty strong position, and maybe it's something we want to definitely stand on or not push back on, but we have to be prepared for that, because apparently we're already hearing some of that out there. The next section is, we're almost done, you guys. This is the last slide here. Almost the last slide. On this, anyway. The next section in here is the Joint Powers Agreement. This is just saying that we can, if we want to, through our governing entity, we can enter into contracts or agreements with the feds, the state, whoever, to manage or share power over land. So we don't have to. If we want to, we can. It's, that's, I don't know if you need to put that in here, we could probably take it out, but it's another one of those negotiating points that it might make them more at ease to have something like that in there. So you've heard this language, this term governing entity several times throughout this, and you've read it a lot of times in here. This section here, section 17, it describes what this traditional governing entity is. And this is important. It needs a lot of thought from us, because its impacts are going to be long-lasting, and this entity is going to have a lot of control and oversight over these return lands. So the traditional governing entity, what it says right now, I might just read this part of it. It says that for the purpose of managing and governing the returned lands in the reestablished area, it is hereby recognized and acknowledged that the Great Sioux Nation, in parentheses, exercises its inherent sovereign authority and exclusive jurisdiction based on its own customary law, which remain in existence today, which we know that already. Accordingly, this act recognizes that the Great Sioux Nation, through its duly authorized officials, shall establish a governing entity according to the nation's customary law, from the Hunkpapa, Oglala, Minkoju, Idazapjo, Ohoyonupa, Sihasapa, and Sichangu Oshbaye of the Teton or Lakota Uyate, who shall act for the benefit of the Great Sioux Nation. So it's saying that our Lakota Nation and our bands of the Lakota Nation are going to govern this and manage it for the benefit of the Great Sioux Nation. And then it also goes on and further says that the United States recognizes and respects the power and authority of the governing entity to manage the returned lands located within the reestablished area for the benefit of all people of the Great Sioux Nation and members of the tribes according to its customary law as it sees fit. So we're saying that we can manage it, and we're going to manage it according to our customs and to our identity, not, we're not going to manage it the way the federal government wants to tell us to manage it. So that is, I think, really, really important. And then there's a section, the next sentence talks about that we're absolutely prohibited from selling, transferring, disposing of any of this lands ever, except if there's a treaty that we enter into. So it's never going to be. We added the last sentence in our committee to address some of the discussion that was held at the last meeting. And that the sentence we added says the Great Sioux Nation and its governing entity, in the spirit of peaceful relations, or Wolakota, pledges to respect and honor the access to the Black Hills by other Native nations and peoples with ancestral ties to the Black Hills for spiritual and traditional purposes. So there was, you'll recall, those of you that were here last time, there was discussion about, it's not just the Great Sioux Nation, who that has ties to the Black Hills. There's Kiowas, Cheyennes. There's others that have ties to the Black Hills, and we need to be looking out for their interests in this too. So that's why we wrote it that way. Open to suggestions on how to make that more clear and protect everyone's interests, all Indigenous nations' interests in this. The next two sections on there just talk about like that we can we have jurisdiction in our court. If the governing entity is created, it will have a court to review things. We put a section in there too about Indian self-determination, so 638. So this is, if the Congress enacts this, we would have the federal government recognize the Great Sioux Nation, I put that in quotes, Great Sioux Nation, as basically a tribe, or as a federally recognized tribal nation, so that it could receive 638, could contract, do 638 contracts and receive benefits that other 638 federally recognized tribes are authorized to do. It's called the list, referring to the List Act. It was something that I think is helpful to put in there for the future, so that the federal government recognizes the Great Sioux Nation, not only as a treaty, but also as under its laws. So then section 18 is this interim management board. So creating this governing entity is going to take a while. It's going to be a long process. Even just getting as far as we have has been, it's taken a lot of thought and a lot of time. Just imagine how much time and thought it's going to take to, and consensus, coming to agreement, consensus, it's going to take to create that governing entity according to our customary law. So in the interim, what this act proposes is that there would be an interim management board, and that interim management board would stand up right away, and it would be two representatives, basically, from one representative from the tribal government and one representative from a treaty council, and it would be from each one of the member nations of the Ojibwe, or like the Lakota Nation. So that's the interim management board, and they would do everything that would need to be done to get this act rolling until the governing entity is stood up. Section 19, this is, and we're going to need to get more specifics on this, I think, but what this does in section 19, what we're saying is that the federal government will, any money that they are appropriating now, that Congress is appropriating now to manage the federal lands, they're going to give that money to the governing entity. And so, like for wildfires or to, anything, like any management of the lands that the federal government is doing now, they're going to give the governing entity the money to do that. Also, if we decide to lease out any of the land or collect any permit fees or anything like that, any of those revenues that would happen, that also goes to the governing entity. Finally, sections 20 and 21 are kind of standard, and well, section 20 is standard. It talks about inconsistent laws. So if there's any laws that are already on the books and in conflict with this law, then then those laws would be disregarded or they're repealed to the extent that they conflict with this one. There's a legal principle that says like last in time, so the last law that gets passed is the most has the most weight because it's the most recent reflection of Congress. So that's kind of probably where that comes from, or that's where that comes from. Finally, the section 21 is the part where we're talking about giving that money back. So that $1 billion whatever dollars that's sitting there now, once this law is passed, we get our land back. That section 21 says we're that the $1 billion that's sitting there because of the Black Hills sedation case we're extinguishing that claim that's going back to the feds. We don't want that money. So that's what section 21 is saying. So let's see here. Let's go to, you can do the next slide. As we were going through there, you probably noticed there's some yellow highlights in here. So the first one I pointed out right off the bat is the name of the bill. the working title has been the Sacred Black Hills Return Act. Our committee had some discussion about changing it to Black Hills Restoration Act, and that's why that's highlighted in yellow. The other area, and I didn't talk about it while we were going through it at the time, but I'll talk about it now, is on page 8 in the definitions section, number 19. In there, we mentioned tribes, and so right now, the way it's written, we just have Cheyenne River, Oglala. These are federally recognized tribes. So Cheyenne River, Oglala, Rosebud, and Standing Rock. But the big one that we're missing there is Lower Brule, the Kolachasha people, because they're Sachandu, and so they've had some. They have family members who signed the treaty too. So I don't know. Earlier this morning, like the roll call, I didn't hear of anyone from Lower Brule that stood up during the roll call. I don't know if there is now, but we need to me, that's a big piece that's missing. We need to reach out to Lower Brule and see if they're interested in participating in this, or what we do about, what we do with them. It'd be great to have them on board, but we're not going to just drag. We can't do that. Just drag another tribe along with us without their knowledge or consent. So that's a big one that we need to talk about. The next. The other yellow highlighted areas I think I mentioned, so like on page 9, we need to get a legal description written up on this, and the legal description we're working with, sorry, I got distracted for a second, are maps, where I'd like to work with getting some maps, not just me, but we need to work on getting some maps. So I've talked to one potential person. He's native, and he might be able to help us create some really, really good maps to, first of all, define where the racetrack is visually, because when we tell our story, like what Education Outreach was talking about, creating maps, and it makes it so much easier to tell our story, not just to our own people, but to the outside world, so we can show, Congress, and we can show these local communities, and our non-native neighbors, what exactly we're talking about. I think some maps that we also would need would be like showing where the mining claims are, like where the federal lands are within the racetrack. There's a lot of other things that we probably want to have a map to tell our story. So we'll work on that, definitely, but that's one thing that is still kind of a work in progress. And then back on page 17, I had mentioned that we might need to work on that a little bit more, about like the specifics of getting that money from the federal government to or if we get it, that they're paying now to manage the U.S. Forest Service and to manage national parks. How that all, the mechanics of that, how that would all work out. So those from the committee, that was the questions that we had left that we didn't have time to really talk about, or really, we did talk about it, I shouldn't say that, we talked about it, but we couldn't really come to an agreement, and that's why it's something we wanted to bring back to the full group. So let's see, is there anything else that I missed? I see Manny coming up, yay. Okay, Manny was a big part of our committee meetings, so here, I'll turn it over to him right now.
Thank you. Okay. Our committee members, where is Dokilala? Whoa. I don't know where all our committee members went to sleep or something. Anyway, at our committee meeting, we talked about a couple of things. We talked about unity. Unity is so important now. How are do we need to even address it? Or we have unity right here, but not all the tribes are here. So how are we going to do what to do with unity? The other thing is we talked about, in our committee, we talked about prayer. We begin with the prayer and we end with the prayer, because Chetapa was a long-standing struggle for our people. And we need to stay in prayer. thing we talked about was Wolacott. We cannot exclude our other allied tribes, or whatever you want to call them, like the Mahpia out there, and Shahila, because they share the same areas and same sacred sites. So I said we should put out an invitation, because we're all one too, and they're all our friends. We utilize, defend that same land. Oh, Etchity, thank you.
Steve, is there anything you wanted to add or comment on? And is there anyone else from the committee? Let Steve go in.
Okay. Thank you. One thing I noticed in our meetings was lack of participation from other groups and tribes, because the members that were there, and it was on Zoom meeting, were the only ones there were from Wakwash. I was wondering where the Sutanku was, Oglala, and the rest. We need to chime in. This is a really important, I hate to say it this way, but probably the most important of these committees, because the language, the text in there is what they're going to review. The legal review is going to be done by the Washingtons, who don't understand us even up to this day. And I would like to see more participation. And I think get it to Tracy and her, the Agent Collective, when the Zoom is on and such.
Thank you, Steve.
Over here.
Okay, there was empty in the front that wanted to speak, and then I see, I might just turn this back over to you, Robert, then too. I would just close by just saying that, join our committee, where there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of input. So I'll close there, and unless, I'll stay up here in case there's any questions that need to be answered, but then I'll turn it over to you, Robert, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm from the reservation here on the Oglala, and there's some of us here from Oglala, the reservation, and it's good what we heard and all that, but we cannot forget our council. We cannot forget that council that's going to sit down and meet. I'm one voice. Maybe there'll be three voices. What? That council is going to have to step forward and say, this is the way it will be, or we approve of what you're doing, or they can say, rewrite it. It's up to them, and there's 17 of them sitting there. So, and as we speak right now, they're in a council meeting at the casino, and it has to do with our boundaries on the reservation. That's one of the things coming up right now. And so that's what I think our tribal president did here. But Darla's here, and she'll take it back. And she'll take it back and talk to him. And it'll go before the council. Whatever is decided here. And you've got to think that it looks good. Everything is good. Everything, but once they sit down, I don't know about the other reservations, what the council is going to say or do. But I know the council. I mean, I know the council. The thing right now that, it's the ranchers. Ranchers are tying up everything. And so, they had a meeting here yesterday to do with ranchers and boundaries and stuff for them. And, they were kind of disappointed, but they're going to go back to the council. And so here's where we come before the council. And what paperwork I have here, I'll take before the council. And I will go to probably the executive board. That's Darla and them. And she probably has that too. Put it before the president, he'll take it, go to the council. And so that, it's right there. What people can move forward. And they have to be convinced. Because right now, the tribe has adopted 74. That's there. And it's on like a standstill right now, that. And so, about a month ago, 2 months ago, they had a meeting, and Mario Gonzalez talked about it. Really talked for support for that. And then I never heard any more. So I don't know how that come out. But like I said, it sounds good. It's good. But I'm old me. And what I got in Darla's here, what we have, take it back and put it before it right now. And we just see what they have to say. They'll say, when we hold off on it, they'll really go over it or something. I don't know. But that's how they work. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you for saying that. It's really important. And this isn't intended, this meeting is open to anyone who wants to come and yeah, us taking this back and talking to our people is what is important to us. So I see a few hands. I saw Magana. I saw your hand up. Did you want to say something? And then, oh, were you waiting for Bill? Okay. Bill, and then I see Andy over there in the way corner, so I'll go there, please.
Hello, is this on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. What I wanted to add was, in the story, I think it was item 2, or something, we should, when we tell our story, we have to document all the minerals that's been taken out, whether that's gold, whether that's timber, uranium. Now they're back looking for gold. The reason I say that is because we paid already for that land twice now. And I like the section of not, tell them take their money back for the Black Hills, but we've got to add in documentation to show that we've given about all we could give. Millions and billions probably of dollars in resources. We should note that in there. And I talked a little bit to one of the other committees that was up earlier, and they seem to agree, or some of them agree, but I think we need to add that in there to show them that we've already paid for that land anyway. But they'll know the language. But I think just to document that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bill. I think I saw Andy. I see some hand raising in the back. Is that Harry?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, Harry was on our committee too.
إن شاء الله أكو أختار واقع كنا. You heard everybody, Tracy talking about the bill Because we know that in the past history, when we do things and get things done, when nobody shows up, they say, gee, nobody told me about that. And then we write down things and, we say, well, you weren't there. And like Steve was talking about, everybody get involved from the Chetty shop going. And Manny and I just recently talked about that, having a unity meeting with all the Tritona, the Santee, Yanktonay, and meeting. And whoever else that to be in there, like Kahanshi Phil, Little Thunder, and I was sitting here, we got relatives in Wyoming, blood relatives. And when we talk about this part of this treaty, we said, was it Northern Cheyenne? Arapaho? It's written in there. But we can get hold of them, we have them on Facebook, and look for some leadership over there, and let them know that what's going on, so that way they have their input in this. Because at the treaty in 1868, it says, from the East Banks to the Tutankhamun, I kind of got mixed up there, to the Wyoming. So these are things that we need to look at. And then the other thing we haven't brought to our committee meeting is that why don't we have our own Supreme Court? Quote the Supreme Court and make our own laws. We're supposed to be a nation. A nation. So we have our own Supreme Court and make that decision our own. I know there'll be probably a lot of oppositions for it, but we as a nation, we can declare that. We can declare that. And we can bring this bill to the Supreme Court of our own and pass it there. But that's kind of a distant way off, and I guess it has to have unity decision on that. But if we don't have our own Supreme Court, well, the Washitas are going to have their decision and tell us what to do. I think those are things that we have to look at. So I guess it's kind of like a food for thought on this, but we do need to have that unity meeting. So with that, I'm going to jump off here. Lamelo.
Oh, I see one hand up there. I'm going to turn this over to Robert now too. I think we're kind of done with the bill drafting committee report. I would just encourage anyone, I'm hearing all these comments and I'm writing them down, and but I'll get a hold of any one of us committee members and we'll make sure to get you included in our next committee meeting.
I have some questions on your legislative, but also, in the past, everyone was thinking about, I worked with the Comittees long ago, and one of the issues that they proposed was to redevelop and recreate the Great Sioux Nation through the Scottish way, bylaws and constitution. And what happened during that process was, it really got to a point, the question was asked, which Jewish buyer did you come from? And was you appointed to get permission? It's because we got caught up in this Western type of organizational structure, we ended up lot of them were just saying, well, I just come to the meetings. It died, and I could see here you guys are quoting Shakoni and the Great Summation. Just my recommendation is to choose one or the other. And Teoshpai system is based on the Teoshpais. Now, again, just went back to the 1868 treaty. And November 6, 1868, Red Cloud, Thunderman, Iron King, High Eagle, and Thunder Wise Man were there at the peace agreement signing. They represented their Teoshpais there in a green and 18. And the other bands, they all went too. They all had their families and they all went. So, and I've overheard a lot of issues about consensus. But long ago, my grandfather Bill Hardclaw, he said long ago when they used to have meetings, men were selected to come and make decisions based on their character and credibility. What they would do is send out sticks that were made and that they would come. Because it was a way that one voice was able to go home and communicate with his people or get a good decision made and make that decision. But today's modern times, we come in large groups, and we basically, after a while, we kind of contradict each other. So I was thinking, my recommendation, suggestions was, who are your elections and leaders? You need to identify all of them. They're there in the communities. And that's what really is very important. And the other part I've seen is that we could never really get away from the Indian Reorganization Act because government only recognizes that government entity. And you got to remember, every 2 years it changes. And that's the part that we really have to take a look at is, do we want one representative? And I read the article, what I'd like to make a suggestion on that was, instead of which may be appointed by the treaty, I'd rather have will be appointed by the Treaty Council. And I see two distinctive models here. I see and it's probably models, they call them General Counsel and Business Council. It's the same model. To delegate the Business Council the authority to do daily operations. And I think that's it's a trying model. But in order to get it functioning correctly, I think that later on in your sessions, and you guys are young people, so you can get all the names on the 51 and 68, because their families still exist. Some of them didn't make it, got roped out. But that's my thing on what's the changing that. I also see that you're still going to incorporate the Self-Determination Act. If you start to incorporate 638 contracting, there's rules and laws that have to apply, and that will always affect you enjoying with the federal government. I understand. It's been a long time. I know everybody's wants this to happen, but we can do it if we could just sit down and really discuss these issues. Who's going to manage the land? Who's going to handle the resources? And the one thing that we really have to understand is that, can we trust each other? That's the big issue every time I come to these meetings. Can we trust each other? Because when you don't trust each other, at the end, it changes constantly. ill. So I was gonna tell you something, but I don't, anyways, I will. I was over at the Lodge Hotel, had a high fever, and I was probably hallucinating, but anyways, I went to the other side to see them. I'm not going out there, and they told me, they said, Adele knows everything. I said, she does? Adele who? I said, I said, listen to me, young man. I said, Odell knows everything. Is that the one that sings that song, Sex and Fire on the Rain? I said, they looked at me. And what he said was, and it was kind of interesting in a term, was that with technology, no matter what we do, technology is going to be always monitoring what we do. And I'll say, gee, what we're going to be doing at this time. Because as we get older, we kind of get ornery. And we kind of get, we like to achnia too, But it's good to work with elders who have crossed that generational path that come into the 20th century and the 21st. But a lot of them, I just wanted to, there's a lot of older individuals that are academically trained. Just that the environment made us look old. And I'm hoping that we can actually just be blunt about things. I understand, I always say that the treaty meeting long ago, the stars flew across the sky and the grass grew and the river flowed. We talk like that, and I've noticed that the American government talks like that too. They never really are truthful about anything. And so, we really need to sit down and it's going in a good direction, not saying it isn't, but we need to really watch as we get trained in their academic world, we need to watch they perfected their language. They know the rules. They created it, so we really have to really watch them and their character. We always say it, how they all, that's mine. That's my property. They're the first ones to introduce property rights in America to start segregating land. They know where all the good water is. They know where all the good food is. So they know what they have to protect and own. And for us, the Comittees, we need to come together and really sit down. Some of us understand the Scout Treasure way. Some of us understand our customs and values and our spirituality and our governance. We both have to come together and understand that we have to trust each other. Because somebody said to me, hey, you talk like a white person. I went to school. I went to OCS. But I'm telling you, that's where a lot of our little things that are bogging us down. And I've seen over the years that many of the older ones, like my grandfather Oliver, Charlie Underbaggage, all of them, they worked really seriously hard to identify them. So, all right, I got my signal. Because it's always bringing out all the time. So, all right, I'll let you go with that.
Okay, I just got one thought here that I want to ask or share or comment. And I'm going to start out with the history, Lakota history. We have a beautiful history. Before we met any immigrants that came over. And when they came over, we welcomed them and we lived amongst them, or they lived amongst us. And then treaties had to be created because the immigrants were greedy and they took gold and whatever. So we have a bad history of relationships with other government entities in the United States. We all know this. You know, and if you go back to our songs, one of our leadership songs says, that's evidence there that the federal government removed our form of leadership, collective leadership, and made one person who they thought was a popular person become the spokesman and headsman for that particular nation. And all these other Tioshpais who were part of that governing body, they ignored it. And so immediately they started to divide us. So now you see tribal governments called IRA. There, the Supreme Court, they are comfortable and they allow programs to exist to continue that process of division by not allowing any kind of local Indian economic development. So I thought, my other thought was these tribal governments that the Tioshpais that are not coming, I thought maybe they're being blocked by their IRA governments and telling them not to go, to come over, wherever. So I think that, you know, that if somehow we could have a provision within this bill here that we're not preventing other nations who wanted to come but couldn't, that they could join later, something like that. Because we have to have this bill ready, and then when they hear about it, then maybe we could take it out before we send it on. Because if we depend on our history of all of this, we're never going to move forward. We're going to continue to talk about history and all the bad things that have done to us, that we have no solutions. Okay, thank you.
I just want to thank you all for the good discussion and the good input and following along with the draft of the bill as it's written so far. I've taken note of these comments that everyone was sharing, and I would encourage, I even wrote down names of those that made the comments. I'm going to be reaching out to you, and hopefully you can join our next bill drafting committee. So a lot of these comments need to go into this bill. So I'm going to end it there so we can move on with the rest of everything else that we need to talk about as far as next steps. So we'll be on.
Oha! To no nicht stimmen, ich hatte aber to no nicht stimmen. Nu baki gle amani khime. If you fell asleep or nodded out, raise your hand. I didn't do that. Okay. Well,
The jurisdiction, section 13.
say that?
The jurisdiction key there, page 15. civil and criminal court action. That's equal on top. 1851 treaty. And the court on top. It belongs to us.
Oh, yeah.
68 been violated. Null and void, according to President Benjamin Harrison. 1890, when they started taking the children. 1891, he said if we didn't get the 3/4 male consent, it's null and void. And 51, 68 tries to erase it. But last year the report came in that the 51 medicine bonds are complete or not. So that means every square inch, the mapping. So Bureau, BIA and IRA, they're a wash up here. And Minnesota, that's the same old rock up there, John. Let Dr. Lupin Quagga. Like the two scouts. So one becomes a messenger of Wakantanka, and the other one becomes Hurula of Wakanshita. So their jurisdiction delay. Take one out the head and talk. I'm a coach and I go. I just want to make that clarification.
Still, I agree with you a whole bunch. Like our ancestors, we want to cause a fight, or they'll say, okay, we're going to sit down with you and we're going to talk about this. But that's not the end. We gotta talk to them and talk to them from a position of power like we did when they negotiated the 51 and 68 treaties. So I don't know where Nick is or whoever head facilitator now. We've done the agenda. We English now? Oh, not yet.
Mr. Tilson, may I speak? Mr. Tilson, may I speak? Betu washte, toke amalo kote cha, koli ama tueki, chichi akapi, wachi. Betu ki yushke anape chiyu, Ron Russo machapi, na wapawaste matahilo. Hogo wichasha shape, awachi chamulo. Le wapa ki ta, cha nami chico tapo. Wana wasichu yaitulo, ilamayapi. Okay, I learned that from Oglala Lakota College, and I'm very appreciative of our language and our culture, and something that I carry with me very daily. I'm a 7th generation descendant to Chief Gaw, and I learned some powerful things in my life, and the path I'm on, I can't explain it, but I do know, that back in the Battle of the Little Bighorn in the Greasy Grass, Chief Lane White Man, he said before he stormed the 7th Cavalry troops on Cooley, he's Northern Cheyenne, he looked at his Akichta, his warriors, his Owitikas, and he said, come now, young men, with me, and show yourselves to be brave. And this is something I didn't learn in my school in Teostrodopa, in LaPont, South Dakota. This is something I learned at Officer Candidate School when I became a lieutenant in the United States Army at Fort Meade. So this is the type of curriculum that they're training United States soldiers using our language and our strategies of war to train their soldiers. We don't even do that in our own schools. We're all public law 638 this and self-determination that. And then I come out here and I'm very grateful to see all these elders. I'm proud and honored to speak right now. I'm very Michigan, I'm very beautiful, and I'm still learning. But I have a good heart, and I continue to stand on the values that I learned from my Comittees and La-Las. So this being said, I'm skeptical. This is to me seems like job security for some attorneys. These same attorneys that are out here trying to talk big about getting our land back are the same attorneys back on my res that can't give food and water to my members. They can't give housing to my members. But they're out here talking about giving us land back. They can't give us water in Teostrodopa School. They can't give us water in Takini. So how are they going to give our land back in the Black Hills? They can't do that simple stuff back home. And that's what I'm very upset about, that I come out here and I see the same attorneys that are doing bad at home here, still leading us. I hear elders talk. You know how an attorney is supposed to work? We tell them what we want and they make it happen. And that's how it should be. I want to touch on this bill. I'm very grateful for Mr. Tilson and the Indian Collective. They're doing a great job. They're inspiring a lot of indigenous around the world. But it's important that we understand sovereignty, because if you look at the news, the Department of Defense is giving $500 billion to Ukraine, $500 billion to Afghanistan. Those are sovereign nations. Where's our $500 billion? So how come we're not going to the Department of Defense and asking for at least $1 billion? If they can give $500 billion to Ukraine, why can't they give $1 billion to us? On my tribe, we got a $280 million trust fund from JTAC, and that's enough. We fight over that, and it's enough, but we don't even use it right. But imagine if we got $1 billion from the Department of Defense. And we negotiated with this nation, United States of America, as a separate sovereign. And we asked the Department of Defense for the same funding that they give these other tribes, or these other nations, separate nations. So I'm not trying to slow down the progress on this, but we do need to have them tough discussions. And you know, these attorneys that can't provide housing for our homeless, and they're the same ones here. So I'm skeptical. How? Oh, Lamia.
All of the committees reported back. And so this next part of the meeting is to talk about the next action steps for this Omanichi and the purpose of why we're here. And it's not having to do with money, it has to do with land. It has to do with the land back to our people. But we're going to shift the energy, because our energy is low right now in this room. That's why I asked the Okawi Chasha to sing the Tashuke Wiko song. And in this song, those of you who already know it, and I apologize to my elders for saying this before you, but to the younger ones, this song says, when you look to the Black Hills, remember me. When you look to the Black Hills, remember me. He said that for a reason. He said that for a reason. He wants us to not only remember him, but remember what he stood for. Remember that the Black Hills is about our future. Remember that power, that resistance that he had is what we need to instill. And we need to not talk about it, we need to be about it. So I asked the Okawi Chasha to sing this song, and then this last hour and a half of this meeting, we're going to move into action steps for the reasons why we're here. Acha too. Opila Okacha, Okawichacha. Are we ready to get the Black Hills back then or what? I love it that we can say that, and that's what we're actually doing. This part of the meeting, those of you that were some of on the committees, we're gonna have each committee talk about what next steps are. The logistics committee, we're going to intertwine with setting the next meeting date. Because every meeting that we had so far, what we did is we would set the meeting so that in front of all the people, we know when the meeting is, and that you can invite your Kioshpais, your family, your leaders, or whoever you think needs to be at the next meeting. So the logistics committee, I think that's gonna be maybe Tom Swiftbird and Manny, Ironhawk, I think he's on that, and Renee. So setting the next date, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that here pretty soon. We kind of have been roughly, been going off of the welcoming the Thunderback ceremony. We basically said, when this thing is going to really start to move, is when the Wakina are going to come back. And when we go up there to welcome them back. And so there's offerings that have been taken up there over the past few days, and there's another group of people going tomorrow to do that too. And those prayers are for welcoming the Thunders back, but are also for this effort too. They're also for the effort in which we're doing here too. So we're walking on that. And I wanted to explain that too. The different ones made offerings for that specific purpose. We have, the timeline to move forward with this. The timeline that was laid out. And just to remind us, when we're talking about next steps and the timeline itself, it doesn't mean that that piece of paper is going to be perfect. Our goal is to introduce a version of this bill that says what we want, that says what our intention is, and to introduce it this year, to try to get it introduced this spring, so that our elders and our people who've been asked to testify on behalf of it have the opportunity to do that. And so that we get a response from Department of Interior to respond to that. Because if the federal government responds officially to the bill, from the perspective of the federal government right now, it'll be in favor of what we're proposing with the leadership that's there. And that becomes part of the historical record of the government's official position. So no matter what happens with the election, that'll be part of that official record. So I just want the strategy to be fully understood, because I think that when things start to move forward, especially if they start to move forward quickly, sometimes we feel a little panic. We feel a little, is it perfect yet? Is it perfect yet? And so I just wanted to describe that. And also remind us that, there was never what we're proposing here has never been proposed before in the way that we're doing it. There's a little bit difference of what we're proposing now than what was proposed before. And the big part of it is nobody can say that this is about acceptance of those resources or the money, because we said in the bill we're giving that back. We don't want that money. We don't want it to be there for the purpose of dividing the people. We want the land back. So I want to ask that as we go into action items and next steps, when people out there ask you, what did they talk about in that meeting? I heard they tried to accept that money. It's important that we tell them, I was in that meeting. In fact, they said if anybody brings up that meeting, they were going to be excused from that meeting.
Yeah.
That's important, because we know how the Moccasin Telegraph works, and the Facebook Telegraph works even faster. The one thing I wanted to also address, because I got text messages from some of our Dakota relatives while we were in this meeting. And some of the Dakota relatives said, how come we weren't invited to this meeting? And I explained the strategy that if the Lakotas can get on the same page, the other tribes will also walk with us. And I told them, you know that, you know how we are. I say, you know how us Lakotas are? So letting us getting on the same page, that's why all the 7 bands are represented in this meeting today. Because there was an intention and a strategy behind that. Once I explained that, they said, we understand that. I talked to Tui Faith Spotted Eagle too, explained the strategy. She's supportive. So I wanted to explain that to the folks in the room too. You know, it's not. It was about getting us 7 bands together, not just the 4 tribes, but the 7 bands and the 4 tribes together. So we have. I'm going to ask the committee, at least 2 people from each committee to come to the front at this time, because we're going to talk about the next steps, because we have some deadlines to hit if we're going to get this introduced to Congress. So the logistics committee, the advocacy committee, the drafting committee, the spiritual committee, I'm going to ask 2 members to come up here at this time from each committee. While they're making their way up here, a lot of times in these type of meetings, we show up and say, "Wow, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this and this and this?" It's actually just the opposite. It's about what we're going to do about it. So these committees, there's not a hierarchy in here. It's a circle. People who are on those committees is because they volunteered to be, because they want to give something back. And so anybody in this room can be on any one of these committees. Anybody in this room can be on any one of these committees. And your involvement, if you're here, your involvement is wanted. Your involvement is needed. And if you know somebody in your circle, your family, your Tiwahe, your Teoshpai, your tribe, that's not present, that you want to be on this committee, you can bring their name. You can bring their name to one of the committee, leaders. So I wanted to express that. As far as the timing of the next meeting, we're roughly trying to do a meeting within the next month or within the next moon cycle, because we already know that if we're going to Blackout Peak now, we're going to be going to Peshla next. So we're going to be coming up here anyway. So following the protocols that we already do, for thousands of years anyway. So it might not work exactly on the exact date, but around the date too. And logistically, it kind of helped out too, because there's some people who are coming up here. It helped put some gas in their car, maybe some food, maybe some money for the offerings, those types of things too. So just practicality of that too. So, the drafting committee, I'm gonna hand it over to Tracy, because I think that there's gonna be a hard deadline
Not him?
of what we, when we send it over to
He's the one
the
that
folks we're gonna send it to.
Alberta ASIC. So she was part of the logistics as well.
Okay, that's right.
And she wanted to get.
Thank you, Nick. So we are on these are some of the, myself and Manny Ironhawk and Steve Moran, we're the ones here that stepped up for the bill drafting committee. I know there's a few others that signed up, but we got a lot of work to do, as you see, a lot of important work, as all the committees do. But if you can help us, we meet each week. I see Shannon in the back there too. We meet each week. It's been working for us to meet on Thursdays, like around 6 o'clock when we do Zoom. And so if any of you want to join us, please, and reach out to any one of us. Our next steps are going to be taking some of the comments that we heard here today and working them into the bill. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve and Manny, see if they want to add anything.
You should have another trip. Just gotta go to it, information he provides, but again, I have to say, you have valid knowledge basically.
Anybody wants to join our committee, you're welcome to join the committee. Tasked with writing language, and we've written the language so our members of Congress will understand their own English language. And we used a little bit of Lakota words in there. As you can see the bill, Cheti Shakoi, give a definition of Lakota, and so on like that. We did that. So, anybody welcome to join our committee. You can we also meet on Zoom, okay? So you don't have to worry about gas money or anything. Here's Shannon.
We'd like to get your thoughts on the title of the bill. There's the two options on the front page. That will really help us to really format the rest of the bill. A couple of thoughts. I don't know if anybody touched on what is the boundary? Some of the discussions we had was utilizing the Black Hills Meridian, are using the terminology that's used in the history books, our congressional record, the Great Sioux Reservation, because that will help us to format the rest of the bill.
Thank you. Andy, do you want to add anything? You want to just raise your hand? And he knows Lakota better than probably some of us in here. Terry, I heard it.
Yeah, I just talked to Tate Means, and she wants to be added on to the committee, bill drafting. Tate Means.
Got it. She was one name I wrote down. I was going to try to recruit her, so good. Thank you.
Yeah, we need a lot of input. There's a lot of work to do. It's like Nick said, we got to get this done and get this organized. So with that, we need a lot of input. So thank you for Kate for responding and to be part of the committee.
All right. My first language was Lakota. Okay, so I don't know how I got on this legislative committee. I have to rely on Shannon and Steve here, anyway, I had to learn English all over. I had a little problem with English, but I must be good because I'm here today. What Harry talked about earlier, we talked about a Ochechi Shakoin Supreme Court later on down the road, because we need to hear our own cases. And for example, like this one, it would be passed, and then we're going into a foreign court that doesn't agree with us many times, okay? So that's why we need to get approval from our own court system, and then take it to the federal courts that way. So we will have, maybe UN, I don't know. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
I got one more thing.
Tracy, we got a Lala over here that wants to join you. She's a law school graduate, but she's a Lala.
Come on, yes, I'll get your name as soon as we can. So is that what, are we done with the field directing committee then? And we'll hand this out to another committee then for next steps. So if you're ever standing next to me, I'll give it to you.
Tracy, here again. I got Wilma Waters that want to be part of that real drafting committee. Wilma Waters. This is a thousand true enclosure.
Agriculture, honey, commercial house, just done. Like yours, you up here, when you meet your cup, that's a leadership, I know what I'm a because to tell, I used to look you come, man, you know, you like a Yukini. When I let you, Moyaka, as I go, you're there, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to cut box. As I just got to good job for this arcade, yeah. That's your loop. As when I it's Washington, stop, if I kills legislation there, look after they don't just give federal government, they give it, and here we are. And Judge Muhammad, there's a lawful taking of the land. So man is pursue that. And now we really have a good chance of getting the land back. And we need to all try to stand together now. This would be just maybe 2, 3, 4 tribes to go up there and speak. Here, Macaulay here, yeah, a teacher. But look at the woman like there, honey, for Gavablahan, or Situa Wakish. When I first started school, I didn't know how to speak English. And to me, every place was like where I grew up from. So when I went over there, what? Somebody would tell on me, so I didn't know what to think. And I never thought we'd get to a place where tribes have to stand up for our language. That's first language here in this area. Lakota. So now, as we go ahead with the Black Hills, and where we express our ideas through our language. And I've seen that since I was a little boy all the way up to now. It makes me proud to see this going on now. I'm up in age now, going down the other side of the hill. And I don't know how many years more Picasso will give me. During my lifetime, I still stand behind putting back the Black Hills. There's a couple of names that remember who only runs after. John Littleflower. Liddell Gluon. Steve Chargeny. They were kind of silent, but yet they were strong voices. And they spoke. And then I see the Manny and they're standing here. See how important it was. So they took it upon themselves and began to push them. And it was great success. And so we have to kind of think back on our history, how other people were involved in keeping us alive. We're doing that for us. I know my mother, she's a Oglala. Her maiden name is Between Lodge. And somehow my father ended up in high school at Pine Ridge. I was asking about her. She never did answer me. That's where he met my mom. She got married. Eventually, my dad got on a cattle program, so we moved back to Grand River. My mom came along with us. They built her house near Retcher Table where she grew up. And so she's all ready to go back over there. So I took her over there, and she walked out to where she grew up. There's a lone tree standing out there. I remember that. And she's out there for a long time. And I went over there. She was crying. So she said the wrong thing. Don't cry now. I had to shut up. But from that experience, where your heart is where you grew up. So my mom's heart was always at Retcher Table. But she would talk about this frequently on the Black Hill. So when she comes out here, in Lakota she would say, "You see my land, you see my hill." So I think that being part of this, I'm very proud. It's a Rama Award.
We're representing the Education and Outreach Committee. Our purpose is to educate and communicate with the people and the public, and we're doing that by creating different educational materials.
My name is Cedric Goodhouse. I'm from Standing Rock, and I first volunteered to be on the committee at the circle over here. I couldn't get on those 2 times. I want to talk to Ms. Moran there. My wife had a hospital doctor's appointment in Bismarck, and then the other times when she had to have her operation on her knee. So I couldn't get on. But when I stood here last time at this last meeting, I stood here and I said that if I can't be there, I support you anyway. And that support is also trust. So I trusted that you would move forward regardless. But if you still miss me, I'm happy. You missed me, no. But, you know, this education committee I think is really a good thing. It's going to touch the people that aren't here and can't come here. And for some reason or other, it's not in what they're listening to or what they're learning. I just had my grandson was here, and he asked a few questions, and you know, I understand, have my grandchildren tell me, and they're all about that age, 13, 14, right there now. So I got 7 of them that age. So, you know, so I understand what you're going through and what they're not learning. So those are the things that we're developing, and hopefully we can get have a Facebook page out here within the next couple of weeks. We're going to be able to start posting it. Each member, we're going to ask each member to do a post on that Facebook page, just about teaching or what we feel has to be said. The other thing is that, you know, there's a couple of things that we failed to mention. One of them has to do with the canons of treaty construction. And those, if you look them up, they said that the treaty is supposed to be interpreted as we understand it. You know, and those things need to be pushed. Those things need to be pushed so that we don't end up having our own Supreme Court, have things just like the non-Indian. You know, because I think that we have ways of handling people. And we need to highlight those, get on those if that's what you want to do. Because right now they're on Standing Rock. They put a bunch of, right in the surge, they're making more criminals. Making more criminals out of good people. Because the lack of resources are there. Not lack of knowledge. So I wanted to say that because we need to, this is kind of like a holistic push. The education, the spiritual, the mental, the legislative, you know. We all have to move forward together. And
just one last plug. We're having bi-weekly Zoom meetings, Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you're interested in joining the committee, reach out to me or Cedric. Nice to see you. They're sitting over there, and I'm kind of sitting in the back over here.
Hello, everyone. Madonna. Earlier, I didn't get to introduce myself. I'm from the Sicangu Lakota homelands. I'm a Rosebud Sioux tribal citizen. I'm married into the Oshke Guipi Tioshbai, and so that's how I identify because they marked me as one of their own. But I wanted to talk about what the next steps were for us spiritually. Again, I've had a few of you reach out and let me know that you would like to be a part of the committee. As soon as we get something organized, get a Zoom call in, we'll be sending out through emails and reaching out. I think for us, the next steps are looking at the timeline that you guys were given today. When this legislation will be introduced in May, is getting a ceremony done by then. So just forming our group, going over the key points, figuring out, you know, what it is that we want to ask or pray about, and then doing it and hopefully getting it done by the beginning of May, because I think our next meeting is going to be set that first week in May sometime. And so those will be our next steps. And again, if there's any of you that would like to be involved, please reach out. And we'll do our best to get to you and add you to the list. Thank you.
My relative Madonna here, she brought up a good point as we had a discussion earlier about the balance with male and female in our culture, our spirituality. So it's important that we have male representation and a female representation with this committee as well. So we encourage any of you to sign up, but we definitely like to get, the male perspective, a lot of males, from our elders on down to our young relatives and the females as well. So one of my mentors, he told me prayer is number one in our life. And I think that goes without saying with each and every one of us here. We kind of know that we live our way of life through prayer and walk on Tonka. And we try to walk every day in prayer and relative. So this is a very important effort. This is a very important committee. We want to do our best to follow our life ways, follow Tonka, and follow our hearts and our minds and our spirits. But we also we want to share what we're doing and be open and transparent with everything. So we just welcome every one of you. If you guys want to be part of the community, please be part of it and help us how much.
And I wanted to go ahead and remind everyone too that, I know that everyone in here probably prays and knows how things are done, but, looking towards ceremony and going in and getting guidance, from the Tunkala Oyate, like we have to keep in mind the directions that they may give. We don't know what that might be. We don't know where that's going to take us. We don't know how quickly they're going to want us to move either. And so I just want everyone to kind of keep that in mind. Once that happens and the directions come, things may move quickly to, per their directions. Or, you just don't know what they're going to tell us. So I just kind of wanted to remind people of that part of it and the carefulness of it too.
To acknowledge the Creator of us all first, foremost. First to run towards the sun. That's who I am. I'm on Lakota spiritual name. My English name is Phil Little Thunder Sr. I'm 66 years old. I had 7 children. One of them passed away last year, my son. I'm also on the Treaty Council of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. And I'm also an employee of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, Tribal Historic Preservation Office. And now I'm involved in this. And in the past, I've been involved in countrywide famous name changes of mountains, like Blackout Peak. Mount Evans changed to Blue Sky Mountain now. And Horny Peak changed to Blackout Peak now. And anyways, the reason that I mentioned my employee and employers and one of my boss, my supervisors just lost his son. And, in our Lakota protocol long ago, we mourn for a year. We stay away from the crowd. We stay at home because we're hurting. And part of hurting is anger. We take it out on other people. We don't be careful of our mourning. So I've been trying to stay out of the public, but in today's society, we have to work. We have to, participate in life. Or the rest of my 6 children. So I did my mourning, and I'm ready to move on and let my son go home to the Star Nation. So that's why I'm here. And I speak fluent Lakota, but as courtesy to the non-speakers, I use my English language so that I can get across my point to everybody. My job at Tribal Historic Preservation Office, one of my former directors, Ernesto Ibarra, is here. And as I was told by elders, I have to watch what comes out of my mouth because I can't take it back. It can build somebody up, but it can also destroy somebody. So I have to be careful of what I say. And my spiritual leader back here, my nephew, I didn't know all these things until 1992. The reason I volunteered for stuff is because I was brought up in a religious way since the age of 4 years old in a Catholic boarding school until age 34. I started learning my spirituality and the Chanupa ways. And I was asked by one of my friends back home why there is no Chanupa here. And I was thinking, I was told by an elder, we don't know about the female connection to that pipe, because the female, their timing is very powerful, and it can override that Chanupa. So that's why I didn't bring mine. It's at home. But a lot of the spiritual other things, the feathers and the eagle, the head, and the smudging, even in modern society, if you do smudging here, the fire alarm's going to go off, sprinkler's going to come on, and we're going to get word out of here, all that stuff. But Tribal Historic Preservation Office is survey, monitor, and excavation, and my survey job is when I go out there, I look for things. It's a controversial job, Some people say I opened the way for, bulldozers and all that stuff. But there's another side to that, If I see like a arrowhead right there, say, stop the construction, you guys can't go through here. And I could buy maybe 50, 100 arrowheads from the, thank you, buy them from the souvenir market and spread them all over the hills, so nobody can go there. Because it still is a spiritual place, but as the white man understands the construction people, they can't go near it. So that was part of my job. And my treaty office, the treaty office and the IRA government walk hand in hand or sit by each other. And as somebody mentioned earlier, unity. We have to come together to make this thing work. Walk out of this room, put it in your mind, we're going to get our land back one way or another. And yeah, there are some negative comments and stuff going on, but as everything goes, there's a divide and conquer tactic. We have to reverse that. And for myself, I appreciate Mr. Tilson and all his crew here that are putting this thing together and getting our Black Hills. I thought about this long ago when tribes started buying small sections of land in the back hills to make it our own. And so it can be done. And I was told with the Chanupa, the prayer, anything is possible. And that's why I'm here. And the Chanupa is with me in my mind, my heart. And I want to thank everybody here. If I offend anybody or hurt any feelings, I apologize. Oshicha, la koda bugla gnashi, la toshkawa ki diki, uchi ki una hildak, na likshiwa ki russell, almost my mentors, and my young brother, the future warriors, you're here and I appreciate that. And so if I miss anybody, thank everybody here.
So for the next steps for the Political and Legislative Committee, our next step is that we have to identify sponsors for the bill and finalize the legislation. And then our third step is that we would like to reach out to all of our Ocheti Shakoni tribes and obtain letters of support from the tribal councils. And also, we will be reaching out to the Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association to obtain an overall letter of support from all of our Great Plains tribal nations. And I just want to put a plug back out there that, we do welcome you all to join the committee. And we meet, so far we've been meeting at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time every Friday. That's kind of been working for us, but we can be flexible, kind of want to have a standing meeting. We really have to hit it hard within this next month. So we're going to be meeting every single week on Friday, just really hammering it home because we got to work fast because we want to meet the deadline of having a legislative draft close to finalization by the end of April. And we also want to make it in time to have a, hopefully we'll get a hearing before the legislative session ends this fall. So again, please feel free to join our committee. We welcome everyone. We will let the good chiche.
I apologize, I forgot to read something here that I wrote down. On June 1st to the June 19th, we're doing the Ancestral Healing Circle. My friend Paul Soderman that has been with us in the name changes down south and over the mountain. Has asked me to announce this Ancestral Healing Walk, run, and horseback ride and whatever we're doing. And we're gonna do a mountain name change up north. As mentioned before in the government, the United States government is a transition stage during the elections and stuff. And then there's a time opening, just like was mentioned here earlier, about the timeline of opening to do these things. So I want to mention that Ancestral Healing Walk, June 1st to the June 19th, and there is going to be a name change effort up north. And I want to thank Mr. Paul Soderman personally for doing these things. Love, man. Thank you. A bit more time. No.
Okay, can I get my other logistics committee people up here?
Okay, I will be back. Thank you. Hey, Bang, give me your postal checking check.
All right. I should introduce myself. Hello, my name's Tom Swiftbird. One of us are getting to know each other, but you might have known maybe my grandpa Pete Swiftbird, or my grandpa Joe Swiftbird, or my grandma Dolores Whitehead might be more familiar to you than me. Yeah, so I'm the logistics committee. We're just about making this welcoming and good space for us all to be in. Some stuff we tried to improve on since last time we got the floor mics instead of having people jog around with those 6 mics. And one of the important things we wanted to announce is that we set the date for the next one. Nick, do I got this right? May 2nd?
Yeah, well, I guess we wanted to propose that while we've been getting ready to finish this meeting, we've been calling around at a place in Rapid to see who has a big enough room, because we're expecting probably more people the next meeting, and this room is not available. So we found one for May 2nd. May 2nd at the Hilton Garden Inn, just down the road. And so we wanted to run that by to see if that works for everybody, because we wanted to find a big enough room, and they have one there. And that room has windows. So don't feel like you're in the casino. But I wanted to check with the Treaty Council members that are here, if that date works, because this effort, this whole time, we didn't go against when it worked for most of the Treaty Council members, then we would, move forward with it. So I don't know if Lexi Vicky Mooskamp has his calendar out. That May 2nd, it's a Thursday, and the rooms are a little bit cheaper too on Thursdays. They're 30% cheaper on Thursdays. Will that work for everybody? Yeah? Oh, huh? All right then.
Checking. It's really good to see everybody here, and I just want to apologize to my elders that I'm speaking before, because I was waiting for them to talk, and I really want to hear from some of our elders from Cheyenne River. And I'm glad that the NDN Collective is giving us this format for all of our Lakota Oyate. We're just one part of the Great Sioux / Lakota Nation. We're just one part of that, from the band, the Teton, 7 bands. We're not the whole thing. And there's 6 others. And they're the Dakotas and the Dakotas. And my Ate Wayaki, Fred Bastos and Chiaki, took his journey, but he's a comfortable one. And my mother, Wayaki, Carrie Jewett Bastos, she is I'm very proud of my family. I'm very glad to be born Dakota. I feel privileged and honored to stand before you, all of you, as my relatives. I'm glad to see the relatives from the north here today, and all the other Lakota bands too. And last minute jumped on the logistics committee because I like to plan. I've done it before as a director, and of course as a mother and as a wife, you have to do a lot of planning and directing and managing. And so I'm glad to be a part of the logistics committee. And I believe that we have some future actions that we're thinking of. And it plays into something that the legislative committee said, which is unity. And I really think that we will do a great injustice and disservice if we do not include our relatives of Dakota and Lakota nations. Because we all live together, work together, pray together, fought together. And there are other tribes in this plains area that also came to pray. They lived on these plains and they came to these sacred areas to pray, to do ceremonies with us. And during those times, we all got along. We didn't fight when we knew we were praying. And when we were doing ceremonies, there were no enemies. And that's what we have to remember, that we're all related. Other plains tribes, maybe we stole from each other, but yet when we prayed, we knew we had to get along. So if we do this logistics, all our planning, we keep praying at the beginning, at the end, even maybe stop in the middle if someone's wanting to argue, and pray. I think we're going to get through this. We're going to come together, and we're going to get out of our heads sometimes into our hearts, maybe into our spirits, and remember that we're no different from each other. And even the people we're going to talk to and ask, they're two-leggeds too, they're Hulupa, even though they're not Lakota, they're not from our nation, but they know they did wrong. So I have every faith that we're going to be able to do what we once did before and live and come to our sacred Chesal, to do ceremony with others too, other tribes and other bands. But unity is important, and we need to really be inclusive. We've seen a lot of programs, a lot of approaches that came to our reservations, and they were working good, and other people wanted to be part of it and to learn about it, but when people said, no, we're doing this is ours, and that approach failed because we weren't willing to share it. So the only way we're going to keep what we earn or work on is we have to give it away and we have to share it. So all our communities need to keep that in mind, please. Without you, sir.
I think you covered everything what I was going to say. I got invited on the committee of logistics, so I jumped on there and gave my input and did the best I could on this logistics. So I wanted to thank the logistics committee for allowing me to speak on their meeting. Wopila. You had a word up there, land back, heal the people. Heal the people. You hear what I'm saying? I myself have to heal myself to be this Lakota man that I was meant to be. Without that, I probably would have not been standing here today. So I had to work on some of my issues and not carry it around. So healing of the people, you know, we need to think about that. We have a lot, we went through a lot of historical trauma. We went through Wounded Knee, some of the descendants. We still carry that trauma. But we can't let it go on to our children, any kind of trauma. It's got to end with us. It's going to end. And we will be the Lakota nation that we once were, so powerful on this plane in our sacred Shetapa. And all that is Shetapa. We need to start thinking about healing ourselves first. And then we can move on from there. Pilama.
Thank you, the comment on this. I just wanted to cover that on the in the presence of so many leaders. And I know this is just only going to grow, and part of our logistics, we wanted to get everyone, not everyone, but if you can bring something that represents the nation or staff, whatever it is, just represent. With that, I think we covered pretty much everything we listed. Appreciate you.
Testing, 1, 2. Okay, we're going to go into our closing ceremony. Wanatioba naungi kaka kitaja. Ya balihichi apo. Okay, I love. We charge wahenche tiko ya. Leo Ucheki Iwachi. They talk up closing remarks. Oh, and not a chunk. Closing remarks and closing prayer. Russell Eagle Bear, Rosebud Warrior.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to shut this down as we get into the closing prayer. We're really thankful for you to have joined us, and let us know where you're watching from. And you can watch recurring and share it.
O he chesafa unkata ya amani honey,
Oh, it's the end. We're going to keep it live.
Black Hills Steering Committee Eli Oapha. Nahema la Kotia Oakach Nitecha. O Heta Black Hills Steering Committee Alpema El Oapha. Eho Chesapa Nayama Koche. Atea pi Hamanchot o Manchoche Unkipiko ha Hena Hektakia Unkichipi. Oashehoin Oyat Igluita. Na ya Iwogalaka Pina Mukama ni Vash. Wanamania to Ota Dagni Chukumshin. I just like to say thank you to all of you who are working on the Black Hills issue. You know, it's been over 40 years. I sat on a Black Hills Steering Committee. I sat on the Black Hills Treaty Council. But I also represented the political aspect or tribal council at that time. And my council selected me to represent them because I speak the language. And it's been over 40 years now. And I was on that Black Hills Steering Committee. And we did a lot of legwork among our Oteti Shakoi, trying to bring unity so that we can be one when we approach the United States government. And we had a Senator Bradley willing to propose legislation. And we got it that far. Then came a man named was Phil Stevens, came among our people and said,
make me a special chief and I will take it to Congress and I will get the money for you. And I will get you billions of dollars. And you know, when they mentioned money, our people fell apart because they wanted money. Some of the tribes turned on the Bradley bill. And it came to nothing. So the last 40 years, nothing really been happening. I know I go to many of these meetings and we discuss the things and see how we can make it happen. But of course, we have discord among our people. Some people say, no, you can't do this. No, we don't want you doing this. You know, it gets to that point. We get too technical today. Years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I came to a Black Hills Treaty Council and I asked for their support because our tribe wanted to go purchase some land here in Black Hills, the heart of the Black Hills, the Peshla. And they turned me down. They said, why should we go buy land that already belongs to us? And that really, you know, we have to play the game of the federal government and the local Washitus. We decided to go ahead and purchase, and we got a consortium of tribes together. Other tribes, Dakota tribes, they all joined in and we pulled our resources together and we bought land in the center of the Black Hills. Peshla, dead center of the Black Hills. And we've been maintaining that. There's one thing that we can always say is we got part of the Black Hills back. And maybe in time, in the future, the United States government will see what our people want to do is get our Black Hills back. If we didn't buy that, purchase of that land, they were going to make little sections and sell it. And I'll tell you, there are rich people throughout this country that want to come in to the sacred site of our people and buy that land and put up condos. If we didn't do that, there'd be condos all over the Black Hills right now. And we would be saying, hey, that's our land. Why should we buy it? You know, it took 40 years. For me, on this journey, I'd like to see something positive happen. I want to see it in my lifetime, so that I don't waste the last 40 years of what I've been doing. So it is a good opportunity. If we have, I saw a large group of people standing up here willing to work and pull things together to make things happen. I appreciate that. I applaud them for doing that. Because we as Lakota people, you know, somebody mentioned, the truth. We as Lakota people, if somebody's doing something over here, then we have a small group over here that have Wanawizi. And they'll attack that. That's the truth. Go back, and I'll bet you anything, somebody's going to have negative response to what's happening. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of months, all we've been hearing in Sicango country was Oglalas are getting ready to get the Black Hills money back. Of course, that's probably rumor, but you know, that's how we are. But anyway, I'm glad you guys are taking steps to do something. It might not happen, but
we're making effort again. We're reviving that thought issue of getting land back here in the Chizapa. Tomorrow, we're going to do a ceremony. Wakia Agli, Wichungalo Nihonte. We're going to honor them to come back in a good way. I get criticized for that. That guy's doing that ceremony, yet he's not doing it on the very day the spring comes. That's how we operated as Lakota people at time with time. Then we got the English calendar, and all of a sudden they mark a date on that calendar. And if you don't do it, then, you know, you're doing it wrong. That's our mentality today. Our Lakota people moved for thousands of years on foot. And then they got the horse. They moved a little bit quicker. And if there's one band that's camped out in Rapid Creek, they go and do the prayer for all of us, the way out there. So those are simple things that used to happen. But, of course, today we're really good at yashitaing something. You know, we live like that. It shouldn't be that way. But we are going to make that journey tomorrow. Already, somebody put word out that they canceled. They're not going to do it. And I get a lot of calls last couple of days here. Are you still going to do the prayer? And I said, yes, we are. Whether it's snowing or blizzard, we've been doing this for 35 years. And I'm not going to stop until Creator calls me. I'm going to be there. And we're going to get it done. And that's another criticism. Wow, he's not a medicine man. Why is he doing that? Well, we did, right from the get-go. We went up there with a spiritual leader. Now he's in the spirit world. Over the years, we had help from our spiritual leaders to make sure that we always involved them. And today, I'm very fortunate. I have a nephew that's been helping us, my Tushka Richard. I had spiritual leaders over the years that help who are in the spirit world now. But we always acknowledge them and we pray to them because they're in a special place now in the spiritual realm to help us, Lakotas. You know how we are, we always pray to one God. Well, we pray to Tavashila, but we always pray to the Akantushni, those ones of the other world, who are our relatives. And we ask for help. We ask the Wakianas to come among our people, Oyate Mankoche, in a good way. To nourish Ujimanka, Grandmother Earth. And that's important to us. If you look around the country today, there's hurricanes and tornadoes and all these things happening around our country. But we want good things to them. We want things to grow. That Wichoinchaka is so important to us. And that's why we do this. It's been growing every year. Last year we recorded over 800 people gathering in one site. Now I have problems with the National Park Service because too many of our people are coming there. I have to contend with the Custer County Sheriff's Department. I have been threatened arrest for several times because our people come there and they park in the wrong place. So we organize it to make sure that we cover everything. And I'm very fortunate that I have a tribe that is really interested in what we're doing. And they will have the support to make it happen. You know, one day they might pull away because every 3 years we change administrations and some guys don't understand what's going on or don't even understand the language. But it is very important. And what we're trying to do is go back to that. The highest point in our territory is Blackout Peak. In our traditional oral history tells us wherever we're camped at, wherever band that we belong to, we go to the highest point to say our prayer or to do Hamblechia. But now we're making a statement right in the heart of the Black Hills. We're coming back to that to do our prayer. That's so important. Think about that. We come every year to make our prayer to Wakian. And then we purchase land in Keshla. And our spiritual leaders tell us that's the Wakian Oti. That's where the thunder beings live when they come back among our people. And you can make that connection in the Black Hills, Keshla, Blackout Peak, Montauk, Baja. We have land there too. Our tribe purchased land there so that our people can go there and pray in peace. We're doing things, we're moving, there's movement. And now we're going after a bigger picture. Even here in Rapid City, we had tribes own land here, but they gave it to 3 tribes. And they caused a conflict just coming in here trying to open a hospital or a clinic. Those things happen. But with prayer, like my Tahanshi Phil said, with prayer things are possible. When he was standing up here talking, I was going to make a comment, but I kept it to myself. Now I have a microphone, so I'll say it. When we got arrested in Standing Rock, him and I got thrown in the same jail. And of course he's younger than I am, and he cries a lot louder than I do. Hanti out the chair. I just wanted to share that with you. But, you know, I know you're looking for volunteers, but I want to tell you, all you young people that are involved in this, that I am a resource person. Don't be afraid to ask me or call me. I can tell you a lot, or share my experiences with you. So I appreciate all of you. Yeah, takomani, wajila ukina jimata umwaraka. And I think we need to stand on that. A good example of that was Little Bighorn. That was the last time we came together, all of us. We almost had it at Standing Rock, but something happened there and we fell apart. So we got to stand together, stand fast, and do these things, and help each other. I had people calling me saying, I can't make it up there. So I said, stay home and pray. It's okay. We'll take those offerings up there to that top of that mountain. So I'm honored to be here. I see a lot of my old kolas, and they all have gray hair now, so I don't know. I'm getting there myself. But I appreciate, they said, can you make a few comments? But I kind of went on and on. But I want to call my nephew up here, Uska lecha uo e wochike wahi watching chilo. And I want to ask my nephew to come up and offer prayer. One of our spiritual leaders. I depend on him all the time. I think I want to ask him to say a prayer, the closing prayer. I know these Agichi are standing attention here, so they might fall over if I take too long.
You have the hill you have. I want to thank my nephew, Mr. Tilson, and Native Collective, and the treaty councils, all of the 7 treaty tribes. I want to thank my colleague Russell and organization that kept our ceremonies going. You enlightened our spirit. I didn't hear about the hill gathering the hill until I met Lexi Russell here. Early 70s. The first time I was aware of Black Hills prayer was Pahata. Now it's known as Black Elk Peak. Pahawa Kahisha. I was a young man. There were a lot of young men at that time. First time some of the relatives went up there. My 2 Hanka brothers, Russell Means and Dennis Banks. They represent the movement, American Indian movement. Few places they went to visit when they first came here to help us. They were young at that time. They walked up that hill, they had cowboy boots on. One of them even smoked a pack of Marlboros all the way up there. They were strong young men. They went up there. Brother Russell, Oksham Shetran. Beautiful Black Hills. It's worth fighting for. He said to Brother Dennis, when I leave this world, I'm going to find Crazy Horse. And I'm going to thank him for all he did fight for this land. They said, oh, still, oh. And here Dennis Banks said, what if he wasn't there? So Russell said, what do you mean? You said happy hunting grounds. What if Crazy Horse wasn't up there? You mean he's going to be at hell? I guess you'll have to tell him that. Oh yeah, let us pray for Gopura. You come here and make your hand. Tokia, Pahawa Kankitano Kankitim Kanchmukashla. Oa Wanke Richakua. Dakonishitish, Yushkion, and Vigoshnapik. On the hill, what the hand Hokata can blockade you up the down. Oheche Viana Wichasha la Wakan over Hinari. Monshiola Poheche. Aket Hokata, a woman of Hehan. Tiata Chankukila na Awanko, which is Anion Kipik. Gashala. Let's check the Musha Chichiche. The Hokuk the Wakip Cup. Taku Hanke or Tekika Kip Cup and a Mushu Chala. Or Chinkanka Wichako from Kashla. Oheche to Midakaras.
We'll check it over and see how he out in my home. We'll check the Chapon over on the Chila. We're going to do a prayer song and then we can sing the Ochechi Chapon as this young man with his staff.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us again. It sounds like May 2nd will be the next day. Keep following, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be back for that. I appreciate everybody who was able to join, all the conversation in the chats. See you in the next one.
Over here, Nick.